Welcome to the Lifestyle First podcast, discussing lifestyle medicine and making self-care as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1 question, 2 research reviews, and 3 actionable health tips, all centered around the Lifestyle First method, your blueprint for the 10 key routes of optimal health and happiness. And now, your host, lifestyle medicine physician and coach, Dr. Alka Patel.
Hi, hey, and hello, and welcome to Series 11, Episode 4 of the Lifestyle First podcast. Now, the theme of today's conversation is E for exercise. Now, when I decided this summer that I would spend 7 days in silence and stillness really felt as though they went hand in glove. To be silent also meant to be still, to not be exercising, but instead to be sitting or lying in a place of tranquility. But it turns out that that wasn't it at all, at least not initially for me, because when I dropped into silence, my body did not want to be still at all. I just wanted to keep moving. So I decided to tune into that and to not fight that. And for those first days in silence, I walked a lot. I walked through the most beautiful and breathtaking of landscapes. I walked up and down mountains. I even got lost on mountains as I pushed myself to climb to the peaks. And what I did was I walked very mindfully. So what does that mean? It means that even though I wasn't still, I did allow my mind to slow down, which meant that I used my 5 senses to just notice more. I noticed the colors of the leaves. I noticed the sound of my feet on the pebbles, the smell of the freshest of airs. I noticed the feeling of my heart beating and my calf muscles stretching. And all that mindful awareness, well, what it meant was that after a few days, that need, that urge for me to move, it started to settle. And it settled so that I could be more still and silent. Now, walking is an absolutely incredible activity. I describe it as an activity, but it's innate in all of us. As babies, we got up, we fell, we walked. Walking is what defines us, doesn't it, as humans, that ability to just stand up and walk on 2 legs, Homo sapiens. So here's a bit of an invitation for you. The next time that you're walking, think about, where is your mind? And just allow yourself to indulge in your 5 senses. What are you seeing, hearing, feeling, smelling, tasting? Now, to get into today's conversation with my guest, well, a pre-warning, we are not talking about walking at all. We're talking about something that never even came close to being on my mind whilst I was out walking in silence and tuning into my senses, because what we're talking about today is having a 6-pack. Yes, we're talking about chiseled abs and what that means. And I'm delighted to welcome my guest today. It is Scott Harrison, who is an entrepreneur and founder of the 6-Pack Revolution. And the 6-Pack Revolution, well, it's had impact in over 63 countries worldwide. 63 countries. Now, Scott, he's also known as Trainer to the Stars. He's trained Bobby Norris from Towie. He's trained Rylan Clark. And with all of this worldwide success, Scott's even managed to find the time to write a beautiful, beautiful children's book as well. So welcome to the show, Scott.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Amazing.
Nice to meet you.
Absolutely. So look, we're talking about, what are we talking about? It's the 6-pack, aren't we? We're talking about the 6-pack today. So I think I just wanted to start with a little bit of clarification of anatomy for the listeners here, just to make sure that when we talk about the 6-pack, we're all focused on the right part of us. So what we're in essence talking about is this muscle, aren't we? The rectus abdominis muscle, which is the big muscle that runs all the way from your sternum right down to your pubic bone. And I think what's probably important to start off recognizing is what it does, because what it's really responsible for, which may not be immediately apparent, but it's responsible for your spinal movements, primarily for flexing your spine forward. And of course, there's lots of other spinal movements that we have, and there's lots of deeper muscles, which we often call those core muscles. And they're also really, really important, aren't they, for spinal movements. So things like your transversus abdominis, I'm going back to medical school here, your obliques, your pelvic floor, even your diaphragm. But if we think about the six pack, this big rectus abdominis muscle, it's the one that we see, isn't it? It's the one that's most
We hope to
visible.
see.
Yeah, we hope to see it. So let's talk about that then. Why is this target of having a six pack, a visible muscle, become so popular? What do you think about that?
Well, it's because it's hard to achieve. Everyone wants something that you find hard to achieve. So, for example, if a Ferrari was very easy to achieve, they wouldn't want a Ferrari. So it's that ultimate body that we've seen with the Michelangelo statues, and it's supposed to be the ultimate thing, isn't it? So I think that's why everyone's hung on to a six pack. And again, it's very difficult to achieve. And not everyone has a six pack either. For example, the most famous bodybuilder in the world, I think we could agree, is Arnold Schwarzenegger. He hasn't got a six pack. Yeah. He's got a two pack.
Okay.
And this is why he created that very suck in pose with the big arms, the sucking in one, because which is ironic, I guess. But then some would say the best golfer is black and the best rapper is white. And that's what's wonderful about this world, is that no one sort of, like, the best bodybuilder hasn't got a six pack. It's sort of like this strange world that we all live in, which is great. But so I think the reason it's such a thing is because it's hard to achieve, and everyone wants something that's hard to achieve.
Yeah, that's a really, really interesting take on it, that sense that we're striving for something that feels just a little bit further away than we want it to be. And then we get there, and it comes with something when you do get there. And as you say, not everybody gets a six pack, or maybe even wants a six pack. And we'll chat about that as well. But is that sense that there's something to achieve for? But what about that sense of visibility, finding that you want something that you can see? Because, as I've already alluded to, there are really way, way more important muscles that stabilize you and are important for your function than the ones that you can see. So what do you think, again, it is about the visibility of the impact of the work and the effort that you're putting in that's important?
Well, the obvious part of vanity, I guess, and that it's a good look for most people would agree with that. So I know some will dispute it, but I've definitely, when I first got my six pack, I couldn't stop walking past windows and lifting my top up to look in the reflections and stuff like that. I think that also visualization. So I'm very into visualization, and I chose when the six pack revolution was born, it came from me trying to get my own six pack. I wanted to visualize something that I could see, rather than just say I want to lose some weight or something like that. I wanted to actually have this visual target that I could focus on and therefore dream of. And then that was what I think for me was what I desperately wanted to do it. And then also you stamp that moment in history, can't you, with your photograph or whatever it is, and you've gone and done it. Now, whether you want to keep it or you just say, right, I've done that once and that's fine, I got there, is fine. There's a lot of health benefits that come with getting the six pack if you do it properly, of course. There's also detrimental things if you do it wrong. If you malnourish yourself to get a six pack, that's not going to be a positive move whatsoever. And you don't actually have to have such a low body fat percentage to show off your six pack. A lot of people think you've got to get below 10%. That's not true. That's not true at all. 15% you can show your six pack.
And I think it's important to think about this as well, isn't there? Because there is that responsibility to call it social responsibility for what it is that you're showing, again back to what's visible and what isn't visible. So if you now sort of talk about body fat, what we're looking at when we're looking at the six pack is your subcutaneous body fat, the body fat that sits just underneath your skin. But certainly from a more medical angle, what's more important is your visceral fat, so the fat that is sitting around your organs when it comes from a health perspective. And yet here we are again. Of course, we all have different body compositions and body shapes. And as you've said already, not everybody who is focused on working their core is going to have a visible six-pack because of that subcutaneous body fat that is different in everybody. But I think I did read a study which was from the Journal of Exercise Rehabilitation, and they suggested that the normal range, at least for body fat percentage, was somewhere between sort of 17 and 25% for men and 28 and 35 for women. And when you look at the six-pack requirements as such, you said 15%, I think figures are roughly 10 to 15% for men and maybe 15 to 20 for women, aren't they? So those figures are very, very different. So from your perspective and from the work that you've been doing with those that you've trained, tell me about the health side of things. What have you noticed in terms of, you mentioned health benefits? What has come to mind, or what have your clients been telling you about?
Well, to get your six-pack showing, you have to, as you say, remove that subcutaneous fat, which in turn will bring down your visceral fat as well if you're doing it properly, like I said. So everything, this is a real big subject. Everything kind of feeds each other. I'm going to kind of slightly disagree with the quote that you would take saying that a man should be around the 20%. I'm not saying that you wouldn't be relatively healthy at 20%, but you're not unhealthy at 15% if you do it properly. So you've got to know how to feed the human body and how it should be fed. Now, when you do feed the body how it should be fed, there's so many health benefits that come with that. We can go into all the chronic illness, because a lot of chronic illness, I should say, comes from diet-induced inflammation. We eat so much processed foods in the world now. It's this is a long conversation, so we'll try and bring it down into the shortest thing possible. But we need to, once you switch that and you feed the body properly, and also feed it throughout the day, not these one big meal, wait another several hours for another big meal, and you kind of have your nice whole foods, and you cutting out the processed foods, and you can make really delicious stuff. That's more delicious. You just don't think so because you're addicted to this, the salt and the fat and the sugar, the caffeine. And when you feed the body in this way, in a balanced plate of food, balanced throughout the day, you're then balancing the body's hormones, reducing the diet-induced inflammation, and therefore the body can now thrive and work at its optimum. Your gut microbiome is obviously much happier, and obviously we know that everything works from our gut. That's everything we fed. That's our whole system comes from here. So if we go into what that does for the mind as well, then the benefits are endless, because so many people are riddled with anxiety and they can't handle the slightest bit of stress when our bodies are, we're supposed to be able to handle mourning, grief, stress, upset. But now the doctors give out antidepressants more than they give out antibiotics. And most of the time we're all riddled with anxiety because we don't eat properly. Don't get me wrong, I know there are people with PTSD and bad things happen. Let's move that small percentage of the world to one side for a second. Everyone else is riddled with it. I know, because it all comes through my hands every day. And we don't eat properly. We're putting petrol into our diesel engine, or I should say diesel into our petrol engine, and we're wondering why we're coughing, spluttering, and then stopping.
Well, let's maybe talk a bit about that then, because what I'm really interested in is very much that body-mind connection, which you've alluded to a little bit already, because I generally find that the patients and the clients that I talk to, they tend to fall in one or two camps when it comes to exercise and fitness and keeping fit and health. So there are those that feel that they need to see a shift in their physique, a shift in their body, before they can shift their mindset to one of, yes, I can do this, or yes, I feel good about this. And then there's the opposite group who need that positive mind shift first that says, yeah, I'm energetic, I'm healthy, I can do this, and then use that mental stimulation to then create the physical changes in their body. So there's certainly that connection, but I'd really love to explore with you. I mean, I know you, as I said right at the beginning, you've looked after Ryland Clark, haven't you? And he went through a number of difficulties as well, emotionally and mentally, and then had a physical transformation. So again, from your experience, which is it that comes first? Is it the physical transformation or the mental transformation?
Chicken egg. So I'm thinking mental first, and I'll explain why. Because when, like, for example, people see our results and they'll see it, and then something will go off in here. Well, that person looks like me right now. What you're telling me, in 75 days, I can look like this. Absolutely. So now that mental process is started. Then they will come and make the move to do that physical thing. Like Ryan, for example, maybe where he was so far down, he knew he had to get up now. So his mentality was, right, I need to do something now. But it might be, it depends on where you look at it, because it's the physical hole that you're in that's triggering the mental. So which is it?
Yeah.
Is it mental or physical first? It's everything, isn't it? It's just a moment in time when you decide enough is enough. And I think that you realize that this thing we've been lent just for a few years, this thing that we're living in here, needs to be looked after as best as it possibly can. If you want to live a life of happiness and abundance. If you allow the drugs to trick you into thinking they're giving you the happiness and abundance, and then when I say drugs, just to be clear, we've spoken before, I mean not just actual drugs, I mean the salt, the caffeine, the sugar, all the things we're addicted to that we think, oh, this piece of pizza is going to give us the most euphoria, but it's like a very quick drop afterwards. When if you make a nice one yourself, you can feel like you've been plugged in afterwards. And so on. Doesn't mean you're never going to be naughty again, obviously, but you need to find that balance, I think. And talking about the mind is a part of that body too, isn't it? So what goes through here feeds this as well. And the amount of people that I get with they say like the clarity that comes when they've just stopped with the bad stuff, almost within a very short space of time as well. It can be days. The clarity comes and the fog disappears, and you find that you cope better, you understand better, you're better to be around. Your family enjoy your company more. And it's all about making sure, again, that you've got this balance, I think, because in a balance comes a balanced state of mind. You know, everything works well in balance, doesn't it? Yin, yang, positive, negative, sun, moon. If a swimming pool's pH balance is off, it will go black and toxic. So if we can keep a balance in everything we do, I think our life's much more productive, much more happy, for sure.
Yeah. And I think, again, if you look at even what's going on at a cellular level and your neurotransmitters, and you mentioned happiness, and of course we know that when you're exercising and you're zoned in on that, of course your dopamine levels are kicking off, and and you've got endorphins that are circulating as well. But also there's more that's going on. There's other neurotropic factors as well, brain derived neurotropic factors, one that comes to mind, and that stimulates learning as well. And you're creating more brain cells and you're creating more neurogenesis as such in parts of your brain where memory involved, your hippocampus, for example. So there's something even more deeper at a cellular level that's occurring, which then, as you quite rightly say, outwardly shows up as, he's nice to be around, and you're really kind to your family, and it shows up then in your behavior as well, doesn't it? But it is about that mindset shift, I think, because what I really wanted to see is if we could make that connection between the six-pack itself is perhaps the route to not just better health, but better emotional health, and a better mindset and a better outlook, more alertness, more attention, more motivation. And really that it becomes less and less about the physical six-pack, and the real transformation that's occurring is the mental transformation.
Well, funny enough, one of the biggest quotes from participants on my program is it's so much more than a six-pack. And to be fair, you know, most people, you're only going to get a six-pack in 75 days if you're at a certain level. If you're a size 20 dress, then we're not getting a six-pack in 75 days. We'll get you down to a size 12 in one wave, but you're not going to get a six-pack. But the process, I think, is the same anyway, because that big change from one thing to another in a healthy way. And as you say, the six-pack itself is like that ultimate goal, especially for men. A lot of women want a six-pack as well, though, believe it or not. And to get there, you have to clean yourself up. It's not going to come easy, but that's good. Life isn't supposed to be easy. If you take the easy road, you get a hard life. If you take the hard road, you get an easy life. And when we actually understand that tough is good, then this all starts to work so much better. And when you've got control of your mind, in my eyes, you've got control of everything. And talking about the neuroscience side of things, so we've got the neurons that we have going off in our brain that control everything we do, like our movement. If we if we bash ourselves and we feel pain, our neurons are telling us, "Don't do that again. That hurts." These things are multifunctional. They're not they don't just control one part of your body. So your body and mind are actually interlaced. So this is why sometimes you can you feel anxiety, like a physical feeling, and you don't even know why. Sometimes you don't even know why you're anxious, but you've got this physical feeling. So we've really got to sometimes, sorry, we're going on to more mindset now, but we've got to listen to what we say about ourselves and how we think about ourselves. Because if we're constantly spouting bad stuff about our own selves, our brain is going to take that on board and affect our body, because it's all interlinked. Equally, like if you're sitting there and you're like heads down and you're hunched over and life's rubbish and the world's against me and I can't ever do anything, life's like you're going to feed the monster that you wish didn't exist. And it's only existing because you're feeding it. Now equally, if you pull your chin up, your arms are back, you're ready to fight, you smile on your face, you're going to take on whatever comes your way, that's going to tell your brain that actually you're doing all right. You've got this. Just by changing posture.
Yeah, for sure.
And the way you speak. And
So
that's science. That's not woo-woo spiritual rah-rah. That's actual science from your neurons in your brain. There's billions of them. Multifunction all over your body. So everything's connected.
So maybe back to drugs, which is what you were talking about earlier, is if there was a drug on the market that helped you to think more critically, improved your cognitive function, improved your memory, improved your overall health, and it didn't have any side effects, of course you would take it, right? Which is what we've got. Here we are. Exercise. It's at our fingertips for sure. So what would you say then, Scott, if we kind of move on to the action taking part of the conversation? If there's people listening who've been listening to us chatting already and thinking, do you know what? I'm ready for a physical transformation so I can make a mindset transformation, or I want a mindset transformation to enable a physical transformation. Where do people start? Give us 3 actions that people can take straight away that are going to be really helpful.
And now, here is your lifestyle first prescription. Your 3 activating actions to take you from knowing to doing.
First one, let's pick the really easy one. Drink more water. So many people just don't drink enough water. And it's so simple and is life-changing. You won't understand it unless you do it. I recommend 3 litres for ladies and 4 litres for men. Give or take, and if you're in a very, very hot country, you can have some more. That's a little bit higher than what the NHS recommend, but I think the NHS err on the level of basically what you need to function rather than thrive and be like, because on top of this, I would also obviously recommend that you bring some exercise into your life, whether that's going for walks every day, which is a great way of exercising, or actually getting into something that you're actually going to enjoy. For example, if you hate running, don't start running. Do something that you're going to enjoy. Maybe you'll add the running later because your exercise world in your head has changed, but start off with something you're definitely going to enjoy doing. And give yourself 20 minutes. Don't try and make it an hour, because you don't want it to be a chore that you're procrastinating and constantly putting it off.
Brilliant.
So there's the water and there's the exercise there. I don't want to say something that's just obvious, but I'm going to have to, obviously. But cut down maybe on the biscuits, the cakes, the crisps, the sweets, and stuff like that, and the Cokes and things like that. That's obvious. Because if you ask other people this, they're all going to say the same thing. So I wanted to try and think of something else for you. This is the most important thing, I think, for everybody. Focus on what you want instead of what you don't want. And what I mean by that is, even if you say, I don't want to be fat. You're still focusing on fat. Focus on the size 10 dress, or the abs, or the definition in your shoulders, or the flat tummy, or the tight bum, or whatever it is. Stop focusing on the thing you don't want. Stop focusing on weight. What's the one thing, if you're overweight, that you don't want more of? Weight. Throw the scales away. Focus on how you look and how you feel. And the last thing is to live like the world is rigged in your favor. Yeah. Almost be smug about it. If something wrong happens, assume it's for the best. Don't assume the world's ended. Because ever since I've been living my life this way, I've been moving in the direction that I've been looking, which is forward. And I've stopped tripping over things that are behind me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Add all those things together and you live a life of happiness and abundance. I think if you can take this away, but nourishing your body will by default nutrify your mind. And together, very quickly, you'll find that they create the most powerful partnership, and you'll realize that anything is possible.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you, Scott. That was really, really helpful. Some really great takeaways there. And I think a bit like back to getting the six-pack, it's not going to happen overnight. Everything that you've just shared needs practice, whether it's drinking more water, deprocessing your food, thinking about focusing on what you want or what you don't want. Practice, practice, practice. Keep on doing it. It's repetition, repetition, repetition that's going to get you to where you want to. And that's really, really important to remember. So thank you so much. I'm absolutely sure that people are going to want to reach out to you after hearing this conversation. So let us know, where's the best way to find you and find that six-pack revolution?
Okay, so the website's thesixpackrevolution.com, thesixpackrevolution.com. Our Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and everything is at the Six-Pack Revolution. And if you want to speak to me personally, you can find me on Instagram at I am Scott Harrison.
Amazing. Perfect. I will get all of that put out onto the show notes and people can get in touch with you directly. I know you're happy to answer all sorts of questions. We've only touched on the subject today. As you said, it's huge, isn't it?
It's hard to cram it into such a short time, but I hope it made some kind of sense.
Oh, absolutely. Amazing. Thank you so much, which now leaves me to wish everyone a happy, healthy day.
Thanks for joining us on the Lifestyle First podcast, making self-care as easy as 1, 2, 3. Don't forget to subscribe and share, and we'd love it if you'd be kind enough to leave a review. To learn more or to arrange a consultation, please visit www.dralkapatel.com. See you next time.